Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to A Coffee with Francesca and Tracy. Again, we're joined with our friends from Northern Ireland. And today...
Ciao!
Oh, yes, hellos, of course.
Ciao a tutti, benvenuti. Siamo ancora connessi fra il Texas e l'Irlanda per un altro viaggio con Franci Traci alla scoperta dell'ABBA nel mondo.
Wow, now we have like a really beautiful tagline and introduction.
Yes!
I mean, it's
sounded good.
It
sounded good.
Yeah, it did sound really good. I think now we need like a theme song or something to get started.
Yes.
Right? Like, and then everyone can kind of just be singing our songs throughout the day after their coffee.
With some Irish music in the background.
I think that's like a really great idea.
So Tracy, it's your turn to the first question.
I think Mickey was going to suggest something.
No, I was going to ask you a question. You go first.
No, ask me first. That's wonderful. I love this.
Okay, I like an opinion on an issue that has arisen, and you will see it from the Science for Sale paper.
Okay.
Given that behavior analysis isn't very prevalent yet across Europe, and governments don't know very much about it, how would you advise a government to choose between ABA, PBS, Pivotal Response Training, and VB, and the Denver model when it comes to investing in training?
This is this is not an easy question to answer, and so I don't know that I'll be able to answer it, but I'll give you some thoughts.
Well, you can imagine that the question comes from issues that have arisen whenever people come across with dollar signs in their eyes and not promoting ABA.
Yes, and I think just to some context about where I'm coming from. I remember getting phone calls, I don't know, maybe I guess 10 or 15 years ago now, of families asking me if I did the verbal behavior approach. And I said, what's the verbal behavior approach? That was how I responded, because I understood that behavior analysis was a science, that Skinner's analysis of verbal behavior and developing interventions that might target specific verbal operants like the mand or the tact was part of what our science is. When we're teaching a tact, we're teaching a conditional discrimination. So it's the verbal behavior approach to me was not a thing. I did behavior analysis, applied behavior analysis in particular. And so I found myself often explaining that I didn't do a verbal behavior approach. I did behavior analysis. I know verbal behavior. I studied verbal behavior. I taught verbal behavior. And if we wanted to find some targets that were appropriate to teach from Skinner's analysis and the resulting research, that we might do that. But it came under the umbrella of behavior analysis. And so just to I guess give some context in that, I see the branding of a particular approach derived from or informed from behavior analysis as what you said, the dollar signs in the eyes. And I think that it's challenging because at the same time, if you think about something like PBS or PBAS, the technology that's resulted from our work in behavior analysis is important, and to have that technology in a way that can be implemented at a large scale is important. If we could take away the financial gains for the individuals alongside of that, I just ordered my copy of Bigland's book, Rebooting Capitalism, and I'm hoping that he gives me all the solutions for this in that book, because it's interesting. And so then when you start to go into policy work and advocacy in that way, the models that have been branded, particularly those that have been implemented at large scale are more palatable, right? Than something where we come in and say, well, we're going to look at each individual learner as an individual and their contingencies, and the money associated with that starts adding up, right? Well, we have 3,000 students in this school. How are we going to do that? And I don't think we've done a very good job at answering those questions as a science. And I think there have been some pushes in one place or another, but I think the problem, in addition to the individual financial gains that can be associated with the adoption of different methods or approaches that have been, I guess, trademarked or copyrighted. I don't know all the right words there. But also our policymakers aren't typically informed by science.
Yeah, can I just cut across you for a second? Because I've written to some of these people, whose names here remain anonymous, but asking them these kinds of questions and asking them, have you done a functional assessment to justify bringing in a branded version of ABA into a country that is not familiar with ABA? Can you justify that on scientific grounds? Because they have to choose between ABA and your branded version, and that should not happen. And you're doing that. Can you give me the scientific explanation for what you're doing? And they won't answer.
The other thing that comes in then is that the branded versions always come hand in hand with very specific training. You have to go on this course and pay for this course. And what we've been thinking about is, like, if I'm a BCBA trained in ABA, do I still have to do this course, or can I just do this branded version because it comes from the science? I completely understand where it's coming from. I can follow the procedure, it's replicable. Why would I need the extra training? I have already got that training. So we're sort of saying, well, is somebody who's a BCBA better qualified to actually deliver some of these training packages than somebody who has simply done that 3-day course?
Right.
And not as behavior analyst underneath it.
Right, which raises a couple of other considerations. One is that many of these branded packages come with, like you said, a 3-day training, but that 3-day training can only teach so much. Right, like one of the metaphors we use a lot is, are we teaching cooks or chefs? The cook can follow the recipe, but the chef can take whatever's in the pantry and create something that's palatable and nutritious. And I think those 3-day trainings oftentimes give you sort of this template that you're going to go apply regardless of the classroom, regardless of the context, regardless of the home, regardless of the child. It's you do this, and that's that's something that is, I think, very in some ways I think it's preferred for persons who are looking to improve the situation just enough. Because that does
policymakers really like it, because they can send all of their staff on that 3-day course regardless. They'll get the money to do that, and then the staff come back, and then the staff are trained to do A, B, and C. And of course, if it doesn't work, then they don't know what to do, because they only know the procedure, they know the manual and how to do that. And the manual probably works for a number of people, for maybe most even, but there'll be always people that it doesn't work for. Because
it's not teaching principle. It's right back to Beowulf and Risley in 1968 and being conceptually systematic. And that's, that's that delicate dance between learning the science and developing a technology, and particularly in the training and supervision and support.
It goes even deeper, because it's a huge ethical dilemma, and it damages the spread of and the uptake of ABA internationally. And these people should be held accountable by ABAI. There should be a forum, a discussion. Because quite often what happens is, okay to have these branded versions in a country where ABA is well known. But in a country where it's not well known, then you have ABA versus VB. You'll hear parents saying, we're not doing ABA, we're doing VB. We're not doing VB, we're doing PACS. And I said, what the hell's going on? They have damaged the uptake of the science in each of these countries, and they're not answerable. There are no consequences provided for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right. Whereas here in the U.S., as that was developing and happening, we had the certification moving forward. We started to have licensure in the States, and so it's better in some ways, but also the training is where I was actually talking with a friend of mine about this the other day, that when the BACB says there are this many courses that need to be taken, and those courses really can be completed in 1 year's time, our university systems ask us why we have master's training programs that are longer than 1 year.
yeah.
If we don't need more than the minimum coursework, then why do we have a program, for example, at UNT is a 3-year on-the-ground master's program, but why do you need all of those courses? And then when we start to look at the fiscal challenges that the universities are going to be facing, how can we justify that course, those additional courses, that additional time, those additional resources, when our certifying body is saying you only need this many? So this is where the systems interdependencies get really complicated too, in terms of what can ABAI be doing, what can the BACB be doing, how are we communicating with each other, how are we interlocking in our practices so that we're providing the best possible services through our science and training the best possible scientists. At the same time, how are we working with policymakers and legislators? And the certification has certainly helped in that regard here, but honestly, I don't think we're doing it well either.
In all of that context, though, Tracy, when you look at, and we keep referring to the states as providing the evidence base for applied behavior analysis, the gold standard. But in the UK, there was reviews done on the evidence base for ABA, and there isn't any. That's the conclusion from bodies that sponsor the government, or that inform the government.
Mm-hmm.
It gets quite complicated because they're saying there are no randomized controlled trials on ABA, but of course you can't do a randomized controlled trial on a science. You don't do a randomized controlled trial on medicine or biology or chemistry. You might do one on a particular procedure, and there are some randomized controlled trials on particular procedures, but by and large that is not our methodology. Our methodology is single system design, which has a completely different approach to research. But here in the UK, the bodies that are reviewing evidence, they're basically reviewing only randomized controlled trials. They look at other ones, but you have to have like 3 or 4 single system designs with at least so many participants. And
so many replications. And
then it's not recognized in the same extent either. So they're basically saying we can't recommend ABA because it's a science, there are no RCTs, so we can't recommend it. And it gets to that confusion, what is ABA? How do we define ABA? We know how we define it, but that is not how it's defined out there in the big wide world. They think it's an intervention for autism, one intervention for autism, one approach to autism, and that.
And then on top of that, you have the anti-ABA movement, usually from people with autism. Mm-hmm. So not only are people not informed about autism, but what they are or about ABA, what they are informed is all negative. Mm-hmm. So a government is not going to listen to all this thing about ABA, but they'll go for something like PBS. Mm-hmm. It is nice and soft and cuddly. Mm-hmm. So and the PBS people don't stand up for ABA.
And there's a long history with that too, in the States. Yeah. Yes, and I think as a science, in our professional organizations, we also need to do our own our own relationship building, rather than dividing, which I think has been, sometimes I reflect and I think, okay, so we started JAB because the other journals wouldn't publish our work. Then we started JABA because we needed a place to show our applied work. Then we started, and this is not necessarily in chronological order, but then we have the analysis of verbal behavior so that we had a place to put the verbal behavior work. Then for a while we had the Journal of Precision Teaching and Acceleration because nobody would publish the charts. And so do we simply just keep creating more and more specialized outlets rather than working together to harmonize. I've been using harmonize a lot more than disseminate lately, because I think that harmony, that working together is important in terms of thinking both within and outside of what we do.
Tracy,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have my strategy is different. Maybe because I'm not in university. When I hear you, I feel you are a scientist. My style to disseminate is to lie. Is lie. I do not say I make ABA. I just make it, and I try to passionate people to follow me. I do not say I am doing ABA. I will say when they are following us, we are joint teacher, joint our YouTube channel. So I do not explain science before and differences between ABA and verbal behavior before. But after they are loving our style, they do not really know what are we doing, why we take data, why we share knowledge. After I say, this is our ABA, so you can join us. So maybe people outside the university has a different style. Our way to make policies is to be many psychologists, many people together, and we can make pressure to policymaker.
Yeah, I don't know if you lie. You just don't necessarily divulge the whole truth initially. I'm cross-trained in special education, psychology, and behavior analysis. And so when I was working in the public schools, oftentimes I would come in, meet the teacher, find out which child was creating the most difficult condition for the teacher. And I would ask, could I go work with this child for a little while? And they would say, of course, because that child was the most disruptive, or maybe not even necessarily disruptive for the other students, but disruptive for the teacher in some way. And so I'd hang out with that little one and, try to improve the situation, whether it was reducing the difficulty of the homework or adding, making the schedule of reinforcement denser. But whatever I was doing, it removed a problem for the teacher. Okay. And so by the time I was finished, kind of hanging out and talking with the teacher, she would ask me, or he would ask me, what was it that you just did there? And I describe it, first in layperson's terms, kind of how I was changing the situation around. And they would say, well, I need a magic wand like yours. They said, no, you don't need a magic wand. You just need behavior analysis. Right. So, but that isn't necessarily, I don't know that approach is what works with policymakers and with government. What could I do going in to talk with a legislator that removes an aversive condition for them, right? Like what is it that's in my repertoire? What's aversive for them is that there's one set of constituents who are asking one thing, another set of constituents who are asking another thing. They're concerned most about re-election. So unless there's something that I can offer that's going to help them to be re-elected, I don't know how to work within that contingency control, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can only work with, in the situation like that, you can only work with so much, because ultimately you have to be in control of the reinforcers that are functioning as reinforcers for those people, for particular behaviors. And if you don't have any control over those, there's very little you can do, because we have, I mean, I can't even count the number of times we've had meetings with policymakers, and they sit there and they nod and they take notes and they take all the papers we give them, and we leave the meeting and we think, oh yeah, now something is going to move, and then nothing.
It's
you don't have any control over their reinforcers. It's a bit like a teenager, it's, you can't, if you don't have, if the peer group giggles, the teacher hasn't a chance.
I'm going to make a shameless plug for a book that I have coming out. I co-edited with Mark Mataney a book called Behavior Science Perspectives in Culture and Community. It's coming out in August. And the reason I say this is because there's an incredible chapter in the book that focuses on policy and what it is that behavior analysts know about policy, don't know about policy, what we need to do, and kind of trying to do a functional analysis of policy work. What would it look like? There's also a beautiful chapter on activism, advocacy, and accompaniment, and I think that we have as a science, as a discipline, maybe not invested as much of our concerted efforts together collectively to really understand how to move those systems differently.
Well, we did some work, or we've been doing a lot of work across Europe.
You have, yes.
And working with one particular parent who's a cardiologist, or a couple of parents who are cardiologists in the Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And with their work and information we provided for them, and giving a presentation in their parliament with Laura Unum and Neil Martin, and so we managed to get the first country in Europe to pass legislation in favor of ABA.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, they basically have a law to say that behavior analysis should be delivered by people that are trained, and then basically a mirror image of the BACB 4 levels of training.
Absolutely beautiful. And that's in the other paper you linked us to.
That's in the most recent paper, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Is it in the fake newspaper, or is it in this one here?
I can't remember.
Oh no, this is in Lisa's new paper, in the new European paper.
We need to have Lisa here. We need to have a coffee with Lisa for sure.
Yes.
Yes. We do. The other group that's doing some really great work in this way is the group in Oslo, Ingun Sandeker's group, with the Behavioral Insights team and working through that work. I've been trying to follow a little more closely what they've been doing, and I happened to be on a dissertation committee in Oslo earlier this year, and really had the opportunity to see how they're starting to analyze, how they're starting to shift, how they're building in not just the nudge in terms of evoking the different behaviors, but also the consequences that would sustain them too, which is really quite nice. So I think we all are kind of chipping away at it.
Yeah, but it depends on your context. Within in Norway, they didn't buy into the BACB because they didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
Same over here. There are no jobs, or there are no jobs for if you have a BCBA qualification. So why on earth would you do it? And that became a big problem right across Europe. But it allowed us to promote the science, to saying there are international standards. So we've used that until things went pear-shaped with the BACB. But depending on which country you're in Norway, they didn't need the BACB. They could do their own thing. So there's more behavioral analysts in Norway per capita than many other countries. So getting policy implemented was relatively easy. It just meant there were more people around who could talk to somebody's ear and make things happen. In the other countries, you have to rely very much on parent power. And I know that happened right across the States with Laura Unum. It was on the shoulders of parents. Parents were driving it, and quite often, and we found this in Ireland, behaviour analysts took a back seat and let the parents do the work for their science, which was shameful.
Yes, I'm a product of that. My very first full-time job as a behavior analyst was working for a public school system that had a department of behavior analysis because the parents sued the school.
Okay. Hey friends, it's time to finish our coffee. My colleagues will kill me.
We're just getting started and solving all the problems of the world, Francesca.
So we have to discover the word and to save the word. And I was thinking we can invite a policy maker. Maybe in 1 year we will take a coffee with a policy maker in Italy or in Europe.
I think that would be wonderful.
And so really thank you, friends from Ireland, For sure, I will text to you for an exchange of the student and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And Tracy, can you ask them to advise us about someone to take a coffee with?
Well, I think we've already talked about Lisa. That's a wonderful suggestion. But are there other folks you think we should invite to a coffee?
Jana?
Well, Jana is not. She's a parent. She's a parent from the Czech Republic.
That would be wonderful.
So she's the woman who made it happen in the Czech Republic.
Yeah, she would be very good. She's a powerhouse. She won the international award from Autism Speaks and also the Hemingway Award.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think it will be really interesting. So, dear friends, thank you very much to take a coffee with us and to help us to share behavior analysis through coffee. We love you and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, friends. Thank you.